Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and today we have the whole editorial team with us for an end of year wrap up. So if you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Katie Pigden, Editor of Money Marketing.
Hi, I'm Michael Climes. I'm News Editor of Money Marketing.
Hi, I'm Lois Vallely. I'm Chief Reporter of Money Marketing.
Hello, I'm Amanda Newman-Smith and I'm Feature Writer at Money Marketing.
Hi, I'm John Stenrio, one of the reporters for Money Marketing.
Hello, hi, my name is Mohamed Musatwe and I'm a reporter.
Okay, great. So I thought for this podcast, I could just pick your brains about things that stood out for you, with stories that you've written and other things for 2021 and what you anticipate we have to look forward to for 2022. But to start off, I wanted to start off by saying that there's quite a few new faces, myself included. So I wanted to ask those newbies, what has your experience been like joining this year, joining Money Marketing? How have you found writing for the financial services industry? Lois?
Yeah, it's been really fun, actually. I was obviously freelancing before, which I did enjoy, but it's been so nice to be back part of a team and such a lovely team at that. There's obviously been absolutely loads to learn. I've only been here 6 months and I just realised how many acronyms and how much jargon there is, as Mamadou wrote in one of his weekend essays. But yeah, it's been really fun. Massive learning experience.
Cool. Mamadou, how about you? How have you found it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, just to pick up, I mean, from what my colleague has said, Lois, yeah, we joined together, the same time. And to join the sector in the middle of a pandemic, that was a challenge, so kind of like, stayed home, I was seeing my colleagues via Teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been a, good learning curve, and then, the sector kind of like, people are so nice and friendly, so they make it much easier for me, to kind of like pick up, stuff, so it's been fun.
Yeah, that's good. And JB, how have you found it?
It's been fun, but also very confusing because I had no background in finance, and it's also my first experience in journalism, so pretty tough at the beginning, but as time goes by, I understand more and more what I'm writing about.
That's
JB,
good.
I was exactly the same, and they made me editor, so you never know.
Yeah.
We learn as we go.
Exactly. And also, I wanted to kind of pass this over to the veterans as well, see how you guys found it when you first started and what you've learned like in your time.
Yeah, I'll go first then. I was exactly the same as our newbies, wondering what on earth this new language was. It felt like learning a new language. So many acronyms, so many different regulators to get your head round, different companies. Even within those companies, they have different strands, different names. You feel like you've got to the bottom of it and then you confuse yourself all over again. I tend to write a story, know what I need to write for that particular story, and then next time I come back to it, think, yeah, I got that now, and then I have to reread my story to find out what made sense last time. It does get easier as you go on, as the rest of the team have said. Luckily, the industry has mainly been pretty welcoming. People spend their time, they're prepared to sort of share their knowledge, and there's lots of knowledgeable people out there. I always sort of think if anyone ever refers to us as an expert, I say, no, I'm not the expert. I write for the experts. They are the ones that know. We tend to ask the questions. They probably have a few more of the answers, and hopefully between us, we can all help each other on the way.
Yeah, that's nice. And Amanda, how did you find it when you first started?
Well, I think I've probably been here the longest out of everyone. When I started, I was quite shy and nervous. Everyone was really friendly, but I would say, we had to go to a lot of events where there were sort of the stereotypical men in suits, and being very young, not quite on their level sort of socially, I guess, I felt very nervous. And it was always quite hard to kind of, go to these things not knowing anyone and trying to sort of break in and say, oh, hello, I'm Amanda from Money Marketing. I always found that tough. But I think, the experience you kind of get there, don't you? So I'd say don't be undeterred if anyone feels a bit like that.
Yeah. And Mike?
For me, the biggest difference when I first joined was just the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So when I worked at professional pensions, pension scheme trustees are kind of quite quiet and maybe a bit more academic and a bit more timid. And advisors are far more colourful, say what they think. They're not afraid to say what they think. And the experience I had, which most hammered that home, was at the first sort of money marketing retirement summit I attended. A load of advisors were attacking a speaker from the pensions regulator. And there had to be an intervention made to allow her to finish her speech, basically. And in an audience of pension scheme trustees, that just wouldn't happen. It's just, so that was quite shocking for me.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like a completely different crowd. But so 2021 has been quite a tumultuous year again. And I just wanted to know from your standpoint, from things that you've written, what stories stood out for you? What news stood out for you guys?
All right, I'll jump in first again. Not writing as much as I used to, actually, because trying to help manage and edit this wonderful team. But occasionally, when I have been, I predominantly write about the platform market. I think I've said numerous times when I joined, I had no idea what platform meant.
And now award-winning platform writer.
Actually, protection journalist, second place for platform, but close enough. But there's been a few sort of platform stories, not all of them by me this year, I might add. Aberdeen, formerly Standard Life Aberdeen, there was quite a bit of jokes going around there when a few of their vowels were lost. Well, interestingly, they've snapped up Interactive Investor, often usually abbreviated to II, so maybe getting some vowels back, drop the E's, bring in some I's, just shy of 1.5 billion. The company says it's growth opportunities for them in the personal wealth market. So like I say, loads of jokes about the missing vowels that have been coming and going, but it does give Aberdeen a D2C, so direct to consumer platform, the advised platform, and they've got their own advisors as well. Some people have suggested that could prove challenging for them. I think Andy Bell spoke to one of my colleagues, potentially Lois, and just sort of said that could be a challenging move. Whether he's just being interesting there because AJ Bell don't have their own advisors, but they do have a D2C platform and they do have an advised platform as well. So that they just might think that step further of having your own advisors might be challenging. An Australian firm called Premium is looking to offload its UK platform. It's trying to get rid of its international business, and apparently it's getting close to signing a deal. So we could potentially see that this side of 2021, or if not, early into next year. There's been talks elsewhere of Hubwise, another challenger platform, sort of potentially being up for sale, and maybe SS&C Technologies coming in to buy that. No confirmation of that as yet, but watch this space. Often a lot of these rumours turn out to be true. James Hay completed its purchase of Nucleus, and then the firm revealed exclusively to Money Marketing that the Nucleus name would be the one that survives, which I think will be welcoming to many advisors who are very, very loyal to the platform. But you often would have thought that one buying the other would have wanted to keep their name. So that's been an interesting move. On that basis, actually, I had an interview with the James Hay chief executive, Richard Rowney. David Ferguson, the founder of Nucleus, he's decided to step away. So people could be slightly concerned about that. And earlier in the year, there was a big rumor about Lloyds Banking Group buying Embark. And again, no smoke without fire. A couple of months later, that deal was confirmed for £390 million. It's going to enable Scottish widows, which is part of the wider banking group, to enhance long-term savings propositions for advisors and clients. And interestingly, I think in terms of the technology behind some of these platforms, FNZ, this is going to sound like alphabet soup here, went to buy GBST, another platform tech company. The CMA, the Competition Markets Authority, the watchdog, stepped in, sort of said they weren't very happy with the deal. It's had to be revised. So it looks like FNZ is going to have to offload GBST, but we haven't heard the outcome of that yet. So that's one that I'm going to be watching next year.
Okay, cool. JB, what story stood out for you for this year?
Rather than stories, I would say thematics. So, for example, the Compensation Act 2021 for London Capital and Finance. So the investors of London Capital and Finance will receive a compensation for their losses. I wasn't expecting the government to step in to that extent. Apart from that, the development of ESG. So with all the different asset managers pledging to reach net zero by 2050 at the latest, and also it seems to be backed by a rising demand from investors or advisor clients. What else? Yeah, all the discussions around inflation as well, which have an impact on real incomes, and the discussion around active and passive investment, as more and more portfolio apparently are starting to tilt toward passive and getting further away from active.
Okay, great. Mamadou, what stood out for you this year?
Well, I did cover so many stories. You know? So I mean, I think the advice gap. I mean, that's one story that kind of like standards, because I mean there are millions of people being left behind. So this widening gap, I think that's one. And then also in terms of protection sector. I mean, we've seen insurers kind of like revamping their IP. Protections. Office. So we saw MetLife. MetLife did something. With their IP for those who are self-employed, and then we saw also from the Exeter, and then LV, So I think those stories kind of like started for me, in terms of the sector.
Yeah, that sounds good. Amanda, what stood out for you?
Just before we go on to where you mentioned the award, it was protection journalist, but I will say Mamadou's been doing a great job of building up our coverage in that. So although the award was given to me, it's the team effort there, but it's something that Money Marketing's been trying to put it back on the agenda. So those sort of issues and themes that Mamadou's been looking out for, really good move, and something that we will be continuing next year as well.
Yeah, definitely a standout for 2021. And Amanda, for you, what stood out for you that you wrote or that you saw?
I think there's been a lot more new voices and perspectives that we're seeing in money marketing this year. I mean, that's what's really stood out for me in terms of, diversity inclusion. Our former investment editor, Charlotte, she wrote a few pieces about, what it's like to be disabled and in financial services, and, drawing on her own experience as well. And I think that was a real eye-opener for me, certainly. Charlotte also talked about what it's like to be part of the LGBTQ community. I've said that correctly, sorry if I haven't, but part of that community where you're looking for advice and sort of trying to find someone you feel comfortable with. You never really sort of heard things like that previously. And, for myself, I've been looking at certain issues which I think have made me feel slightly uncomfortable, but I thought, we need to do this. And the big example, I suppose, was the piece I looked at on how financial services, financial advice in particular, is failing Black and Asian people, in terms of a career path and also as a client as well. I had to sort of listen to people with their experience, and it was quite uncomfortable for me, thinking, no way should this be happening. But, as a white female, it wasn't something that I felt able to raise previously. I think this is a new kind of environment that we're working in at the moment. And I'd also like to mention, I think the best interview I did was Emmanuel Crusoe. I'd sort of seen him on the TV just briefly, so didn't really sort of pay a lot of attention, to be honest, really. But then I kind of, decided I would go and interview him because we have a shared background, both brought up on a council estate in London. So I thought it'd be really good to interview him. I just found him amazing, and just sort of hearing his stories, how he's come through the industry, and what he's doing now, and sort of helping people who are not, obviously, the traditional client of a financial advisor, and how these people need education. I think it's amazing. It's a great, example of what can be done. If there's a will, there's a way, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds very progressive. And Lois, what stood out for you?
So for me, it's probably the amount of M&A activity that's been going on in the IFA sector. I wrote a cover feature fairly recently on consolidation in the sector, and it's been really interesting sort of thing to follow. We've had M&G buying Sandringham. Fairstone's mopped up quite a few IFAs, I think, Saltus as well, and there's obviously the relentless march of Kingswood, although it's difficult to tell whether this is because it's actually buying more companies or whether it's just sort of shouting about its acquisitions the loudest. Also, interestingly, we got an exclusive story from a new advisor that's entered the space called 149. Doesn't like to be referred to as a consolidator, but prefers acquirer, which I think is true of quite a few of them. And then also we've got Sanlam, which sold its wealth arm to Oaktree Capital. And it already sold its pensions business to Chesnara, wound down its advisor network, and sold its platform Nucleus to James Hay, which Katie mentioned earlier. So yes, it seems that it wants to be out of the UK basically and focus on its investment business in the UK, and the rest of its businesses in South Africa, I think, is where it's from. So yeah, probably the M&A activity has been a big one. I've also, it's not strictly speaking on my patch, but I've quite enjoyed following the Woodford saga. So we heard recently that Lee Day, one of the lawyers involved in trying to get investors their money back, has taken Link to court. There's also questions about whether Hargreaves Lansdown is going to be taken to court. And I've just found it really interesting how it seems to split the industry. So on the one hand, you've got people saying it was all the investors' fault because they should have sought financial advice. Then you've got people saying, no, it was Hargreaves Lansdown's fault because they shouldn't have had these funds on the best buy list. And then you've got Link as well, people saying it was their fault because they shouldn't have wound down the fund so quickly. So that's an interesting one to follow, I think. Those are probably the main ones for me.
Okay, great. And finally, Mike, what stood out for you?
For me, it was really I think I'll go a bit like JB. It was thematic, really. It was to do with defined benefit transfers related to British Steel. It seems that a lot of steel workers still haven't been compensated adequately, or if at all, since the scandal broke several years ago. All the authorities, the FCA, the FSCS, the Financial Ombudsman Service, have been saying, and they've been saying for a while now, we're looking into it. We sympathise, but we're looking into it. And nothing yet seems to happen. You've also got the related theme of it seems that a number of advisors who were involved in dubious practices have closed down their businesses and set up shop somewhere else, and are still doing new business. The one thing which perhaps has changed is I think there does seem to be a bit more pressure and scrutiny of the FCA. So the National Audit Office is due to start an independent investigation in spring next year. And the FCA is also meant to decide by this side of Christmas whether it sets up some type of separate and special compensation for steel workers, and decide on that or not. So these things seem to rearing their heads and not really going away. And I'm just struck by how much of the wounds haven't closed, as it were. There's just a lot of lobbying, but not a lot seems to be happening. And obviously, it might be a few rogue advisors who were doing this British Steel mis-selling, but it's tarnished the reputation of the industry, and it just seems to keep coming up again and again. Every month, every other week, there's some story which might not be quite related to it, but goes into that area of DV transfers and steel workers.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
it's been like joining the team as well, and obviously your role with all the sort of digital content and doing a great job of improving our social channels, I think, and engagement there. But what's it been like for you?
Well, I guess I don't get as in depth as you guys. I wish I could get to know more of the industry, get to speak to more people. I mean, being at conferences and stuff kind of helped me to hear a bit more. But I've just enjoyed kind of reading what you guys put together and trying to make it look nice for when we are presenting it on our digital social channels. I really do enjoy just like the digital aspect of it, looking after the website and also editing the podcast. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that side of things, and just trying to create content in various forms. And I think just falling into that digital space has made me look at like the more like digital investment side. So I'm going to be interested to look at that. That's probably my thing for 2022, is like looking more at that side of things and seeing how that progresses, and seeing, if there is going to be more regulation for things like cryptocurrencies and stuff like that, because it just seems like it's not something that's going to go away. So yeah, I've just been slowly trying to pick things up, and I hope I get to learn more like in the next upcoming year and years to come. So yeah. But as I said, the year is drawing to a close, and some of you have already mentioned things that you are looking forward to seeing progress in 2022. But do you have any like slight predictions or anything that you think that might happen in 2022?
I think we might see further consolidation, sort of in the platform space. We'll probably see a few more maybe change hands, like say some of those deals that we're anticipating potentially going through or finding out if they fall through, as is often the case. Probably similar for Lois. I would imagine those deals, nice market will carry on. So I'll let you.
Got that on my list here. Continuation of consolidation in the IFA market. I don't have any predictions of exactly who will buy who, I don't think, but I don't know if you do, Katie. But
I mean, if we do, we might reveal that in an exclusive news story.
That's true. Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
We're just holding out.
Anymore. Sorry, Kim. What did you say?
We're just holding out. We don't want to give other people tips. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I do know.
You never know who's listening.
Other things for me are probably, I'd expect to see more development of hybrid advice models in the market. That's spoken about a lot, which I hope will open up the financial advice to people who haven't been able to access it or maybe aren't willing to so far. I also I should have mentioned earlier in my standout moments, there was obviously COP26. I don't know if anyone else mentioned that, JB, maybe. But I expect probably over the next year, the legacy of COP26 to be revealed. It'll come to light whether those pledges and things that were made in various countries actually make any difference. And also specifically in the financial services sector, it should drive more of a sort of interest in ESG, continued interest in ESG, which I know some advisors consider to be woke nonsense, but others don't. So we'll see what happens there. And then, as I mentioned, the Woodford saga, we'll see how the court cases progress, or certainly sort of things will begin to develop there. So those are the key things I see coming in. No specific predictions, but areas of interest.
I think on that hybrid one, Lois, I think you're completely right there. We're going to see more of that, and also just greater use of technology in whatever form that may be as well. I think that's going to touch on every sort of area that we cover, really. So something that they were talking about for protection, it's something for pensions as well. What the regulator's doing. Obviously, we'll probably see the continuation of fees and battles with all the regulators and various things like that. But yeah, technology, I think, is going to play a greater part.
And maybe some of the providers need to take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amanda, what do you have anything that you foresee happening in 2022?
I think the theme is going to be intergenerational wealth. The reason I say that, I start researching stories and it just seems to be popping up at the moment in everything that I'm working on. I just think it's such a massive thing, and advisors are going to basically need to address sort of how they're going to, deal with the next generation coming through. Are they going to deal with them themselves or pass it on to younger advisors? I think they need to kind of look at their strategy for next year and see where they're heading and what works for them, because what works for one firm and advisor won't necessarily work for another. So a bit like, when firms are looking to exit, advisor owners are looking to exit, they need to work out their own sort of exit strategy. I think it's the same with this issue. You just got to sit down, what are your options, and work out how you're going to do it.
That's been a big talking point at our events, actually, but also that sort of transfer of wealth predominantly to women. So obviously, there's all different types of partnerships, of course, nowadays, but there's a lot of women that should be either inheriting wealth or will be getting that wealth. And there's a bit of an issue that advisors haven't really been involving them in the process so far. So a lot of it, a husband or whoever it might be has that relationship with the advisor, and they're not involving their partner into it. So there's an interesting mix there as well, of it just going across and also down the generations as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, that definitely sounded very interesting, especially at the conferences. When I heard those conversations, it always sounded something that I hadn't thought about, that legacy continuing. I think, definitely something to look out for. Momadou, what do you think we have in store for 2022?
Yeah, for the protection, sector, just as Katie mentioned, technology, that's one big thing. Just to improve on claims and making the process much easier for people. So instead of doing kind of like form, something kind of like digital, claims. I think that's one issue. And then COVID also, COVID, that's a game changer. Even though we are talking about, I think, with this COVID variant, might kind of like change the way the sector kind of like cover people. There's like a gap. Even though people know that they need protection, but in terms of sales, it's kind of low. So I think we'll see more sales, but in terms of IP, in terms of
I think you've already raised it before, Momadou, as well, but also protection sort of needs to rebuild that trust. Although they do pay out a lot of claims, there's a perception from the public that they don't, and so that's some of the reasons that people are off put by it. But also, probably trust of the whole sector. Mike, you sort of touched on it with the British Steel, that it's tarnished the profession. There's a lot of things that obviously there are some great advisors out there. The majority of them are doing the right thing day in, day out by their clients. But sadly, any profession, is struck by those things. As soon as one person does something bad, it can tarnish the whole lot, which it shouldn't be that way. But it's unfortunately the way of the world. But I think there'll be a lot of issues of sort of rebuilding that trust, and sort of the public doesn't always trust financial services in whatever form that might be.
Yeah, maybe make it more relatable. Something like
that. Exactly. Yeah.
JB, what do you have any predictions for 2022? Or what you think might happen in 2022?
So in terms of investment, because mostly what I cover, that's almost certain that you will see more asset managers pledging to reach net zero by 2050. That's a trend that's here to stay. I'm also curious to see what impacts the new variant we have, because I remember when I wrote a piece about the reopening of the UK economy, and one of the conditions was that there would be no new variant emerging. So now that it has happened, is everything put into question now? And also the looming inflation as well. Yeah, so that's this kind of thing that would monitor. Oh, and in terms of regulation and politics, the online safety bill, which is meant to be voted next year. So yeah, that's what I will monitor next year.
Yeah. a lot happening. And Mike, finally, what do you have any predictions or anticipations for 2022?
I think one theme would be consolidation, both sort of at the scheme level. So I think the regulator's driving consolidation of schemes quite a lot, and also the pensions dashboard. And I know that Lois wrote a weekend essay recently about consolidating her pensions. So I think that will be definitely on the line. I also think that there might be a bit of a reckoning with the FCA and British Steel and its general approach to supervision, with depending on what the National Audit Office comes up with. I think that will be quite interesting.
I think there are conclusions to some of the consultations put out by the regulator as well. We've just done a big thing about the consumer duty, and that come into force. That's likely to be early next year, probably February, depending on what comes back from industry in response to that. And I think there's been quite a few that the regulator may have given people a lot of Christmas reading. So we'll probably see the results of that in the new year as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling me all that. But now I want to know about you guys. I want to know what your personal achievements have been this year. What have you achieved working at Money Marketing? What makes you kind of the proudest that you've done this year? Starting off with, let's go for Lois.
I think first off, just the amount that I've learnt. It's a lot more than I learnt in the year previous. As I said, there's lots of things to get your head around, lots of acronyms, lots of jargon. Obviously, I haven't finished my learning, but I've certainly made a good start. I've really enjoyed and I'm quite proud of both the cover features I've written, one on robo advice, looking at both robo and hybrid advice models, and then the other one, which I've mentioned already, on consolidation. Both taught me a lot, and both were sort of things that I could really get my teeth into, which I really enjoyed. And then also being nominated for, or shortlisted rather, for a PFS Journalism Award was pretty good 4 months in, I felt. So, I mean, I didn't win, but that's beside the point. It's the taking part that counts.
You're a winner in our eyes, Lois.
And also 2022, you're taking the trophy.
Exactly. So, yeah, probably those things.
Okay, great. Mamadou, what have your personal achievements been?
Wow.
It's a big question, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just to join this team, I've learned so much. With this fabulous team, I've learned, kind of like, how to do a cover feature. That was something new to me. I've done that before, writing, feature pieces, that has also been, and then have met also very lovely people, in the sector, lots of, amazing, people, from the advice sector, CEOs and you name it, And then, I was lucky to be, nominated. A lot of equity, for Protection Journalist of the Year. Yeah, that was a big milestone,
Yeah. Again, next year you'll have that trophy.
Okay, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm happy to give it away next year.
Yeah. You can hand it over to him. JB, what about you?
I wouldn't speak about achievements, but rather things that have surprised me. So, for example, I was really surprised about how the UK pension system works. That's very different from what I was used to, because it's obviously very different from the pension system on the continent. Another thing, I also discovered how broad the investment market is. So there are much more investment vehicles than I was suspecting before joining Money Marketing and covering investment.
seeing as JB's been so modest, I'm gonna
hasn't talked about his own personal things. I was going to say something.
I'm going to say some of the things that he's done. I think some of the stories that you produced, JB, have been fantastic. You're an absolute machine coming up with things. Really, really good. We had some internal company awards, and JB was highly commended for a really, really good exclusive story, really delving in, good investigation there on the FCA and whistleblowing and how sort of things may have fallen through the cracks a little bit there. So I think an absolutely fantastic job, and obviously a great addition to the team along with the other newcomers as well.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's great for you. That's great for you, JB. And then Amanda, what have you achieved this year that you're quite proud of?
For me, I think it's been learning a few new skills. When I started off, podcasting wasn't a thing, and having to do it, I was a bit scared, to be honest. Same with the weekend essays, different style of writing, which I probably haven't done since I had a local newspaper column many, many years ago.
And you do it so well.
Sorry, what's that?
You do it so well.
Thank you. But it was really scary at first because, I realised I would find a voice for it sooner or later. My first editor said that about that column. He said, you might find it difficult at first, but, it will find its own style and its own voice. And I think in my case, the more you do find that, and it gets easier. And the easier it gets, the more enjoyable it is. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to do them now, and the podcast as well. So, yeah, I'm quite proud of myself for sort of, getting in, the new century, probably 21 years. There you go.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing more. The way you weave your stories alongside talking about different aspects of financial services is so interesting. I think it's amazing. So yeah.
Thank you.
And Mike, what about you? Your personal achievements?
For me, individually, I guess it was being shortlisted for B2B pensions journalist. But I think with my role now as news editor, I'm really enjoying this new feeling of seeing new members of the team really blossom. And I've never had that experience before, and it's really, really quite lovely. And so I'm less interested in sort of my own individual achievement, but more the sort of achievements of my children, as it were, if I may use that term. And I'm very proud of them and how they've come on.
Proud dad. He's a proud.
So I'm a proud dad. So that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. I guess moving on from our proud dad to our award-winning proud mum.
Thank you.
Our editor.
Actually, probably taking the editor role, that was a sort of bit of imposter syndrome there. Wasn't sure I was ready, capable, maybe even willing at one stage of whether I wanted to. But it's been a really, really good sort of learning experience. It was probably difficult for me to step away from news a little bit, and I'm really glad I've handed that over to Mike, and the team did a fantastic job. And occasionally I write the odd story and say, oh, Mike, I can submit a news story for you. But yeah, seeing the team grow, the new people that have come in, our existing members, I think you have both flourished as well and have done wonderful things. Obviously, it was a shame to lose Charlotte. She was doing a fantastic job as well. And Maria, we can't forget to mention our features editor, Maria, who's on maternity leave, who helped us relaunch the mag, who helped us launch stuff like Financial Advisor to Be. It's a real team effort now. I think Momadou often says it feels like a family, and it's true. That's probably why me and Mike are mum and dad of the group or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. I think, a real sort of team effort. Seeing the new mag, I think the new magazine looks brilliant. Everything earns its place there. The quality is really good. We've introduced some new sections of, like I say, the website with Financial Advisor to Be, the fact that we're trying to champion young people coming into the profession, but also second careerists. I don't think anyone else is doing that. So I think that's brilliant. Those things that we're happy to try and challenge the profession a little bit more. Like Amanda said, the diversity issues, we're talking about ESG, whether people want to be or not at the moment. We're recognizing these things are coming down the line. Vulnerable clients, it's a big thing that the regulator's focusing on and companies are, but also we're making that a big drive of what we're doing. Lovely to always be shortlisted for any kind of award, but I have been particularly proud of the team being shortlisted for any of those. I felt we missed out on headline money as the actual sort of team as well, and individual journalists. And I think next year we'll be in a really good position with all of that stuff that we have achieved. And yes, obviously, icing on the cake was suddenly the protection journalist yesterday. I was delighted to be second place for platforms. That was sort of my thing. I was like, oh, okay, that's what I'll edge closer to next year. But the protection bit of just sort of that whole area of the industry realizing money marketing's back in this game, we are going to sort of be doing that. And like I say, it's the team backing me and supporting me, and that's probably why I did take the editor job in the end, that the encouragement I was getting from the rest of the team. So I'm looking forward to what we can achieve next year.
Well, yeah, that was amazing. Thank you guys for giving me your time this afternoon for this podcast. And I hope that everyone listening enjoyed it. Please do make sure that you keep up to date with all of our podcasts via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else that you get your podcasts from. And we hope to see you in the new year. Okay.